The silence from Epsilon Ridge mining station had lasted 3 full days. Nobody noticed at first because mining stations often went quiet during heavy work periods. But when the automated supply drone returned with its cargo rejected and the docking bay sealed, people started to worry. Then the distress beacon activated and everything changed. The signal was weak and broken. It traveled through 14 different star systems before reaching anyone who could help. The message kept cutting in and out, filled with static and interference. But 3 words came through clearly every time the message repeated. Humans need help. Lisa Hayes was hauling medical supplies in her transport ship Aurora's Dawn when she picked up the emergency broadcast. She had been flying cargo ships for 15 years, moving goods between colonies and stations across the outer reaches of known space. In all that time, she had never heard anything like this message. The fear in the voice was real. The desperation was obvious. She played the message 3 times to make sure she heard it correctly. Then she immediately forwarded it to Earth's Colonial Defense Network. The standard procedure was simple. Send the distress call to headquarters. Wait for confirmation. Usually they would send back a message saying they received it and would look into the situation. Maybe in a few weeks someone would come investigate. That was how things worked in the galaxy. Emergencies took time to handle because space was big and help was far away. But the reply that came back 17 minutes later made Lisa stare at her screen in confusion. Message received and confirmed. Fleet deployment authorized. Estimated arrival 48 hours. Lisa read it 3 times. Then she checked her navigation computer to make sure she was reading the distances correctly. Earth was 6 weeks away from Epsilon Ridge at normal speed. Even with the fastest civilian drives, it would take at least a month to reach the station. There was no possible way any fleet could arrive in 2 days. She sent another message asking them to clarify. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe they meant 48 days. The response was brief and clear. Confirm previous transmission. Terra First Fleet en route. Recommend all civilian vessels clear the sector. Lisa had heard rumors about Earth's military. Traders and smugglers sometimes whispered stories about strange ships and impossible technology. But most people dismissed these stories as fantasies. The Galactic Council had made it clear that humanity was a minor species. Humans were good at trading and mining. They explored new systems and built colonies. But they were not warriors. They did not have advanced military technology. Everyone knew that. At least everyone thought they knew that. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Council headquarters on Centauri Prime, the regular assembly was in session. Dozens of species had representatives there, all discussing various problems and issues facing the galaxy. When news of the Krell attack on Epsilon Ridge reached them, it became just another item on a long list of concerns. Ambassador Kyle Morrison from Earth sat quietly in his assigned seat. He listened as various representatives debated what to do. Some suggested sending a strongly worded message to the Krell Dominion. Others proposed economic sanctions. A few representatives said that the Outer Rim was dangerous territory and these things happened sometimes. Nobody suggested actually sending military help because nobody had military forces that could respond quickly. The debate went on for 3 hours. Kyle said nothing. He just sat with his hands folded, his face showing no emotion. When the council finally asked for Earth's official response, he stood up slowly. Humanity thanks the council for their concern, he said in a quiet voice. However, this matter will be handled by Earth directly. We expect the situation to be resolved within 72 hours. The Centauri ambassador, a tall being with see-through skin and 3 eyes, made a sound that might have been laughter. Ambassador Morrison, with respect, your nearest military ships are weeks away from Epsilon Ridge. The Krell will have destroyed everything and left long before any human response arrives. Kyle looked at the ambassador without blinking. You should update your information about human military positions. Your intelligence appears to be very outdated. He gathered his papers and left the chamber before anyone could respond. Behind him, the council chamber erupted in confused conversation. Earth had always been cooperative and patient. They worked within the system. They followed the rules. This sudden show of confidence was completely unexpected and strange. What the Galactic Council did not know was that humanity had learned a painful lesson years ago. The colony on New Boston had been raided by pirates. 63 humans had died while the council debated what to do. Help arrived 5 weeks too late. The survivors found only bodies and ruins. After New Boston, Earth's leaders made a promise. Never again. Never again would humans die while bureaucrats talked and diplomats negotiated. Never again would Earth depend on others for protection. In secret, far from watching eyes and sensors, humanity built something the galaxy had never seen. They called it the Rapid Response Initiative. But the galaxy would soon know it by a different name, the most dangerous military force ever created. The mining colony on Epsilon Ridge housed 243 beings from 18 different species. 12 of them were human. They had come to work the lithium mines, hoping to make enough money to send home to their families. The attack happened without warning. The Krell Dominion was known throughout the galaxy as raiders and pirates. They had terrorized the Outer Rim for decades. Their strategy was always the same. They would find a weak target, attack with overwhelming force, take everything valuable, and leave before help could arrive. They never attacked strong targets. They only preyed on the defenseless. Epsilon Ridge had no weapons. It had no military ships. It was just a mining station trying to extract resources from a barren moon. The Krell arrived with 12 warships and immediately began their assault. The station's shields failed within minutes. The Krell soldiers boarded and started taking control of each section. The survivors, including the 12 humans, managed to seal themselves in the emergency shelter deep in the lower levels. The shelter was designed to protect people during accidents or system failures. It had air, water, and basic supplies. But it was not designed to withstand a military assault. The Krell began cutting through the reinforced doors with plasma torches. Inside the shelter, Henry Carter held his 7-year-old daughter Katie close. She was crying, asking why the bad people wanted to hurt them. Henry did not have a good answer. He just told her that help was coming. He told her to be brave. "How do you know help is coming?" Katie asked through her tears. Henry smiled even though he was terrified. "Because we called for help, and humans never abandon each other." He did not know if that was true. He just hoped it was. He hoped that someone, somewhere, had heard their distress call. He hoped that Earth actually cared enough to send help. Because if help did not come soon, the Krell would break through those doors. And Henry knew what would happen then. In the dark, surrounded by frightened beings from many different worlds, Henry held his daughter and waited. Above them, the Krell continued their work. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, something was coming. Something the Krell had never encountered before. Something that would change everything. Far beyond the orbit of Pluto, hidden among billions of ice fragments in the Oort cloud, something began to wake up. Fortress Station Defiance had been waiting there for 15 years. Most of the galaxy did not even know it existed. That was exactly how Earth wanted it. Commander Jacob Price stood on the bridge of the warship Vengeance. He watched as the authorization codes appeared on his screen. These were the codes he had been waiting for since he took command 3 years ago. Every day he had trained his crew. Every day they had practiced and prepared. Now the moment had finally arrived. "All stations, this is Commander Price," he announced over the ship-wide communication system. "Authorization confirmed. Power up the jump drives. Set course for Epsilon Ridge. We launch in 30 minutes. The bridge crew moved quickly and efficiently. These people were not normal sailors on routine patrol. Every single person on this ship had volunteered for the Rapid Response Initiative. They had spent years training in secret. They had prepared for scenarios that most of the galaxy said were impossible. They had waited in the darkness knowing that one day someone would need their help. Lieutenant Amy Foster was the navigation officer. She looked up from her display. "Commander, jump coordinates are locked in. The entire fleet is ready for synchronized departure." Jacob allowed himself a small smile. The fleet. The galaxy thought humanity had maybe a few dozen patrol boats and perhaps 1 or 2 real warships. They had no idea that Earth had spent 15 years and almost 1 trillion credits building a fleet designed specifically for rapid response to emergencies. 37 ships floated in the darkness around Fortress Defiance. There were destroyers built for speed and precision. There were cruisers armed with the latest weapons. There were assault carriers loaded with fighter craft. And there were 6 dreadnoughts, massive warships bigger than anything the known galaxy possessed. Each ship carried technology that the Galactic Council believed was impossible. "Communications. What is our intelligence on the target?" Jacob asked. Lieutenant Carl Hughes checked his console. "Stealth probe Sierra 9 is still in position near Epsilon Ridge. The Krell have established orbit with 12 vessels. 2 of them are heavy cruisers. They are systematically looting the station. We are detecting life signs in the lower levels, but no sign of survivors on the main decks. 12 Krell ships. Against any other rescue force, those would be overwhelming odds. The Krell Dominion did not raid targets unless they had superior numbers. They attacked the weak and the isolated. They never faced real military opposition because nobody in the Outer Rim had military forces strong enough to stop them. The Krell had never fought humans before. "Commander," Amy said quietly, "we have confirmation from the Council Network. Ambassador Morrison has officially notified them of our response. The chatter indicates that most Council members think we are bluffing. They can think whatever they want for the next 47 hours, Jacob replied. After that, they will know the truth. Helm status on jump drive? Charged and ready, Commander. Waiting for your order." Jacob took a deep breath. This was the moment that would change everything. Once the Vengeance jumped, once the galaxy saw what humanity had built in secret, there would be no going back. Earth would reveal itself as something more than a minor trading species. They would show the galaxy that humans protected their own. "All ships, this is Commander Price. Today we demonstrate what happens when someone asks for help, and humanity answers. Today we prove that no human anywhere in this galaxy stands alone. Execute jump in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jump now." Space folded in on itself. For the crew of the Vengeance, the experience was instantaneous. One moment they were floating in the darkness beyond Pluto. The next moment they had traveled 3 light years and emerged in normal space near a completely different star system. The synchronized jump that every major species in the galaxy said was impossible had just been executed perfectly. Around the Vengeance, 36 other ships materialized in perfect formation. Every single vessel arrived exactly where it was supposed to be, exactly when it was supposed to be there. 0 casualties, 0 mechanical failures. Humanity had just demonstrated a level of technology that should not exist. "All ships reporting successful jump," Carl announced. "All systems functioning normally. We are ready for Phase 2, Jacob nodded. Phase 2 would bring them to Epsilon Ridge itself. They would make one more jump. That would place them close enough to scan the situation in detail but far enough away to remain hidden. The Krell used basic sensor technology. They would not be able to detect human stealth systems. By the time the raiders realized they had company, it would be far too late. Maintain formation. Silent running protocols are now in effect. Next jump in 12 hours, Jacob ordered. He settled into his command chair and looked at the main display. It showed the distant star where Epsilon Ridge orbited, where 12 humans were waiting for rescue, where Krell raiders thought they were safe. The galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson. When humans said they were coming to help, they meant it. Inside the emergency shelter on Epsilon Ridge, conditions were getting worse. The air was still good, and they had enough water for several more days. But the psychological pressure was becoming unbearable. The Krell had been cutting through the shelter doors for hours. Everyone could hear the high-pitched whine of plasma torches slowly melting through the reinforced metal. Henry Carter tried to keep Katie distracted by telling her stories. He told her about Earth, about the oceans and forests she had never seen because she had been born on a colony ship. He told her about her grandmother who lived in a small town in Colorado. He told her anything he could think of to keep her mind off the sounds of cutting metal. Other survivors huddled in small groups. Some prayed to their various gods. Others sat in shocked silence. A few had given up hope entirely and just waited for the inevitable. But Henry refused to give up. He kept thinking about what he had told Katie. Humans never abandon each other. It had to be true. It had to be. Because if it was not true, then they were all going to die here, and his daughter would never see her 8th birthday. "Daddy," Katie whispered, "I am scared." "I know, sweetheart. But remember what I told you. Help is coming. How do you know?" Henry smiled, though his heart was breaking. "Because I have faith. Faith in our people. Faith that when we need them most, they will be there." He did not mention that he had no logical reason for this faith. He did not mention that Earth was weeks away and help could not possibly arrive in time. He just held his daughter and tried to believe his own words. On the bridge of the Krell flagship Bloodfang, Warlord Kresh was pleased with how the raid was going. The station had yielded more resources than expected. Lithium, rare minerals, and valuable technology from multiple species. His crew was loading the cargo hold steadily. In a few more hours, they would breach the emergency shelter Deal with the survivors and depart before any kind of response could arrive. Status on the breach? He asked his second-in-command. Approximately 6 more hours, Warlord. The shelter doors are heavily reinforced. Kresh nodded, his mandibles clicking in satisfaction. 6 hours was acceptable. By then, his ships would be fully loaded. The survivors would provide either leverage for ransom or entertainment for the crew. Either way, the raid would be profitable. Warlord, the sensor operator called out. I detected a brief anomaly in subspace. Explain. There was a momentary distortion approximately 3 light-years from our position. It could be a natural phenomenon. The pattern was unusual but brief. Kresh dismissed it with a wave of his clawed hand. Stellar phenomena. Ignore it and focus on the breach. I want those survivors secured before the next shift rotation. The sensor operator returned to his work. The brief distortion was logged in the system records and forgotten. Nobody on the Bloodfang realized that the anomaly was not natural. It was not stellar phenomena. It was 37 human warships completing a jump that should have been impossible, and those ships were now 12 hours away from teaching the Krell Dominion a lesson they would never forget. The Terra First Fleet moved through space like ghosts. Every ship had its stealth systems activated. Every crew member worked in silence. Commander Jacob Price watched the tactical display as Epsilon Ridge grew closer with each passing hour. Distance to target? He asked quietly. 2 light hours in closing, Amy replied. We will be in scanning range in 30 minutes. Jacob nodded. The final jump had been executed perfectly, just like the first one. They had emerged exactly where they needed to be, close enough to reach Epsilon Ridge quickly but far enough away to avoid immediate detection. The Krell sensor technology was at least 20 years behind human capabilities. Unless the Vengeance and her sister ships deliberately revealed themselves, the raiders would never know they were there. Begin detailed scans as soon as we are in range, Jacob ordered. I want to know the exact position of every Krell ship. I want to know their weapon status, their shield strength, and their formation. I want to know everything. Yes, Commander, Carl said from his station. The probe is still transmitting good data. The Krell have not detected it. The stealth probe had been in position for 2 days now, silently watching the Krell raiders. It was a small device, barely larger than a basketball, but it contained some of humanity's most advanced technology. It could observe and record without being detected. The intelligence it provided was invaluable. What is the status of the survivors? Jacob asked. Carl checked his display. Still secured in the emergency shelter. The Krell are continuing to cut through the doors. Current estimate is 4 to 5 hours before breach. Life support in the shelter is stable. No casualties yet, 4 to 5 hours. That was cutting it close, but it would be enough. The Terra First Fleet would be in position well before then. Jacob had no intention of letting the Krell hurt anyone else. This raid was over. The raiders just did not know it yet. Communications, have we established contact with the survivors? Yes, Commander. The probe has a direct line to the shelter's communication system. We have been sending reassurance messages every 30 minutes. Good, send another message now. Tell them help will arrive in approximately 4 hours. Tell them to remain exactly where they are and stay away from the doors. Jacob knew how important those messages were. The survivors were terrified. They were trapped with no way to defend themselves. Knowing that help was actually coming, that they were not forgotten, could make the difference between hope and despair. On the other side of the battle space, Warlord Kresh was growing impatient. The breach was taking longer than expected. The shelter doors were more heavily reinforced than standard models. His crew was making progress, but slowly. Increase power to the cutting torches, he ordered. I want those doors open in 3 hours, not 5. His second-in-command hesitated. Warlord, increasing power might damage what is on the other side. If we want the survivors intact for ransom, we should proceed carefully. Kresh growled low in his throat. Ransom was profitable, but it required patience. He was tired of waiting. The outer rim raids had become boring. Nobody fought back. Nobody provided any real resistance. It was just target after target, all weak and helpless. Fine, maintain current cutting speed. But I want boarding teams ready. The moment those doors open, I want complete control of that shelter. Yes, Warlord. Kresh returned to watching the tactical display. 12 Krell ships surrounded the station in a standard security formation. Sensors showed nothing unusual in the surrounding space. No ships approaching. No distress responses. Just empty space and distant stars. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Inside the emergency shelter, Henry Carter received another message on his personal communicator. He read it carefully, not quite believing what he was seeing. This is the Earth Defense Ship Vengeance. Help is arriving in approximately 4 hours. Stay in the shelter. Stay away from the doors. You are not alone. Help is coming, Henry read it 3 times. Then he showed it to the others in the shelter. Some thought it was a trick. Some thought it was false hope. But Henry chose to believe. He had told Katie that help was coming. Now it seemed he might actually be right. 4 hours, he whispered to his daughter. Just 4 more hours and we will be safe. Katie looked up at him with wide eyes. The cavalry is really coming? Yes, sweetheart. The cavalry is coming. Around them, other survivors began to whisper and talk. The mood in the shelter changed. It was still tense and frightening, but there was something new now. There was hope. The Terra First Fleet continued its approach. Every ship moved into its assigned position with precision. The destroyers formed a perimeter that would cut off all escape routes. The assault carriers deployed their fighter wings, sleek craft that circled the station at maximum stealth. The dreadnoughts positioned themselves for optimal firing solutions. All ships report ready, Amy announced. We can begin the operation at any time. Jacob studied the tactical display one more time. The Krell formation was standard and predictable. They had positioned their ships to defend against threats from the major shipping lanes. They never expected anyone to approach from the direction of deep space. It was a fundamental tactical error, and Jacob intended to exploit it fully. How long until the Krell breached the shelter? He asked. Current estimates show 3 hours and 40 minutes, Carl replied. Then we wait 3 more hours. I want our approach to be perfect. No mistakes. No chances for them to harm the hostages. When we strike, it will be fast, clean, and overwhelming. The crew understood. This was not just about defeating the Krell. It was about sending a message to the entire galaxy. Earth protected its people. Earth responded to threats with overwhelming force. And Earth did it with precision and professionalism that would leave no doubt about human capabilities. Lieutenant Amy Foster worked on final approach calculations. She had trained for this kind of operation for 5 years. The synchronized fleet movement required perfect coordination between all 37 ships. One mistake could ruin the element of surprise. But Amy was confident. Her calculations were exact. The fleet would arrive in perfect formation at exactly the right moment. Commander, she said, I recommend we drop stealth systems at 0300 hours station time. That puts us in optimal position with maximum tactical advantage. Jacob reviewed her calculations. They were flawless. Approved. All ships will drop stealth at 0300. Weapons will fire on my command only. I want complete tactical control until the situation is resolved. Understood, Commander. The hours crawled by slowly. On the Vengeance, the crew remained at battle stations. They ate quick meals at their posts. They checked and rechecked their systems. They waited. On the Bloodfang, the Krell continued their work. The cutting torches burned through metal millimeter by millimeter. Warlord Kresh grew more impatient with each passing hour. He wanted this raid finished so they could return home with their plunder. In the emergency shelter, Henry Carter held Katie and watched the chronometer count down. 4 hours became 3 hours. 3 hours became 2. The sounds of cutting metal grew louder and more urgent. The Krell were getting close, but Henry held on to hope. He held on to faith. Because somewhere out there in the darkness, 37 human warships were approaching. And in just a few more hours, everything would change. Commander Jacob Price stood on the bridge of the Vengeance and watched the final minutes count down. His crew was ready. His fleet was positioned perfectly. The element of surprise was complete. In his entire career, he had never been more certain of success. All ships, this is Commander Price, he announced over the fleet channel. In 30 minutes, we drop stealth and engage. Remember your training. Remember why we are here. Those people in that shelter are depending on us. We will not let them down. The responses came back immediately from all 37 ships. 37 commanders and their crews, all ready to prove that when humans heard a call for help, they answered with everything they had. The final minutes ticked away. The Krell continued their work, unaware that death was approaching. And in the shelter below, survivors held their breath and hoped that the impossible promise of rescue was actually real. Jacob watched the chronometer reach 0. All ships, he said calmly, drop stealth systems now. 37 human warships suddenly appeared in space around Epsilon Ridge. The element of surprise was complete. The battle was about to begin. Every alarm on the Bloodfang started screaming at once. Warlord Kresh spun toward his sensor station, his mandibles clicking in confusion and disbelief. "Report. What is happening?" The sensor operator's voice shook as he spoke. "Warlord, we have multiple contacts. 37 ships just appeared in the sector. All of them are capital-class vessels. I do not understand how they got so close without detection. Where did they come from?" Kresh roared. "Unknown, Warlord. They simply appeared from nowhere. There was no approach signature, no warning at all. They were using some kind of stealth technology I have never seen before." Kresh stared at the tactical display. 37 ships surrounded his fleet in a perfect formation. Each one was positioned to cut off escape routes. The formation was professional and precise. Whoever commanded this fleet knew exactly what they were doing. Identification. "What species are they?" "Working on it, Warlord. The ship configurations do not match any known military force in our database." "Wait, I am receiving a transmission. Audio only. Put it through," Kresh ordered. A human voice filled the bridge. It was calm and cold like ice water. "Attention, Krell vessels. This is Commander Jacob Price of the Earth Defense Ship Vengeance, representing humanity. You have attacked civilians under Earth's protection. You are guilty of piracy and violence against innocent beings. You have one opportunity to surrender. Power down your weapons immediately. Release all hostages. Prepare to be boarded. You have 60 seconds to comply." Kresh felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. Real, genuine fear. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed what he had just heard. Humans. Earth's forces? But intelligence reports say humans have minimal military capability. We outnumber them 12 to... He paused, looking at the display again. "How many ships did you say?" 37, Warlord." The fear grew stronger. Kresh had spent his entire career raiding weak targets. He had never faced a fleet this large or this well-positioned. But he was still Warlord of the Krell Dominion. He could not show weakness in front of his crew. This is a trick, some kind of holographic deception. Humans do not have this technology. "All ships battle formation. Target the lead vessel and fire at will." The Bloodfang's main plasma cannon charged and fired. The bolt screamed through space toward the Vengeance, a weapon powerful enough to penetrate any known armor plating. The plasma bolt struck the Vengeance's shields and dissipated like water hitting stone. The human ship did not even shake from the impact. Commander Price's voice came through again, still calm, still cold. "Your 60 seconds are up. You have made your choice. All ships engage." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The Terra First Fleet did not just defeat the Krell. They dismantled them with surgical precision. The destroyers moved first. Their point defense systems activated, creating a web of laser fire that intercepted every single missile the Krell launched. Explosions blossomed in space, but none of them came anywhere near the human ships. Then the fighter wings swooped in. The small craft moved with impossible speed and agility. They targeted engines and weapon systems with pinpoint accuracy. Krell gunners tried to track them and failed. The fighters were too fast, too maneuverable, too precise. Within 90 seconds, 6 Krell vessels were dead in space. Their engines were offline. Their weapons were destroyed. Their crews were helpless, trapped in ships that could no longer fight or flee. The remaining 6 Krell ships attempted to escape. They activated their jump drives, trying to enter faster than light travel and flee to safety. The Vengeance and her sister dreadnoughts activated their jump interdiction fields. It was technology the galaxy did not know existed. The Krell ships slammed back into normal space as their drives overloaded. The hulls shook violently. Systems failed throughout the vessels. The escape attempt had failed completely. "This is your final warning," Commander Price announced. "Surrender immediately or be destroyed. You have 30 seconds." On the Bloodfang, Warlord Kresh stared at his tactical display in horror. In less than 3 minutes, the humans had neutralized his entire fleet without firing a single lethal shot. They had demonstrated complete tactical superiority. They had shown technology that should not exist. And they had done it all while offering multiple chances to surrender. "Warlord," his second-in-command whispered, "we must surrender. If we do not, they will destroy us all." Kresh wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed at him to fight, to die with honor rather than submit. But as he looked at the display, at the 6 massive dreadnoughts that had not even fired their main weapons yet, He realized the terrible truth. The humans were showing mercy. They were demonstrating their overwhelming power without killing anyone. But that mercy had limits. If Kresh pushed them further, those dreadnoughts would open fire. And when they did, nothing would remain of the Bloodfang but scattered debris. All vessels, Kresh said quietly, his voice defeated. Stand down. We surrender. The battle ended as suddenly as it began. 4 minutes after the Terra First Fleet revealed itself, 12 Krell warships floated helplessly in space, their crews defeated and disarmed. All Krell vessels have powered down weapons, Lieutenant Carl Hughes reported. No hostile activity detected. Dispatch boarding teams, Commander Jacob ordered. Secure all enemy personnel. Medical teams are to provide aid to any injured. I want this done by regulations and by the book. We are professionals, not pirates. Yes, Commander. Within an hour, human Marines boarded each Krell vessel. They were armored, heavily armed, but professional and courteous. They secured the Krell crews without violence. They provided medical attention to injured raiders. They followed every protocol for handling prisoners of war. The most important mission, however, was the rescue operation on Epsilon Ridge itself. Lieutenant Nancy Collins led her Marine squad directly to the emergency shelter. The Krell had been seconds away from breaching the doors when the attack began. Now, human cutting tools worked to open the shelter safely from the outside. Inside the shelter, Henry Carter heard the change in cutting sounds. The high-pitched whine of Krell plasma torches had stopped. Now there was a different sound, more controlled and precise. Then a voice came through the shelter's communication system. Survivors of Epsilon Ridge, this is Lieutenant Nancy Collins, Earth Defense Marines. We are opening the shelter doors now. You are safe. The threat has been eliminated. The doors opened slowly. Light flooded into the shelter. Henry blinked against the brightness and saw human Marines in armor standing in the corridor. They were smiling. They were real. Lieutenant Collins stepped forward, removing her helmet. Mr. Carter? Mr. Henry Carter and daughter Katie. Henry could not speak. He just nodded, tears streaming down his face. He had told Katie that help was coming. He had held on to faith when logic said it was impossible, and he had been right. We came as fast as we could, Nancy said gently. You are safe now. All of you are safe. We are going to get you medical attention and transport you to a secure location. Katie looked up at the Marine with wide eyes. You are the cavalry? Nancy smiled warmly. Yes, sweetheart. We are the cavalry, and we always come when someone calls for help. The survivors emerged from the shelter slowly, many of them crying, all of them in shock. They had been certain they were going to die. Now they were being rescued by humans who had appeared from nowhere, who had defeated 12 warships in minutes, who had crossed impossible distances to save them. One of the alien survivors, a Centauri trader named Vex, approached Commander Price after being brought aboard the Vengeance for medical evaluation. How did you do this? Vex asked in amazement. How did you cross so much space so quickly? How did you defeat the Krell so easily? Jacob smiled slightly. We prepared. We trained. And when someone needed help, we answered. That is what humans do. But the technology, Vex insisted. The synchronized jumps, the stealth systems, the weapons. The Galactic Council said humans did not have advanced military capabilities. The Galactic Council was wrong, Jacob replied simply. We kept our capabilities secret because we are not interested in conquest or intimidation. We built this fleet for one purpose, to protect our people and respond to those who need help. Today we fulfilled that purpose. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light-speed communication. The Galactic Council received full battle data from the Vengeance's recorders. Representatives watched in stunned silence as the recording showed 37 human warships appearing from nowhere and defeating a Krell raiding fleet in less than 4 minutes. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not a minor species. They were not weak or helpless. They were the most dangerous force the known galaxy had ever encountered. But more importantly, they were protectors. They were the cavalry that arrived when someone called for help, and nothing would ever be the same again. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began exactly 12 hours after the battle at Epsilon Ridge. Every representative was present. Many had arrived early, wanting to discuss what they had seen in the battle recordings before the official session started. The mood in the Great Chamber was tense and confused. Ambassador Kyle Morrison walked to his designated speaking area. He carried a datapad with official reports, but he would not need it. He had been preparing for this moment for 15 years, ever since Earth decided to build the Rapid Response Initiative in secret. The Centauri ambassador spoke first, her 3 eyes fixed on Kyle with an expression that might have been anger or fear or both. Ambassador Morrison, the Council demands an explanation. Your fleet demonstrated technology that violates multiple treaties. You have been deceiving us about your military capabilities for over a decade. Kyle met her gaze calmly. With respect, Ambassador, we have violated no treaties. Earth never signed the Military Limitation Accords of 2247. We never agreed to the technology restriction protocols. We participated in discussions about those agreements, but we never formally signed them. You can check your records. A murmur ran through the chamber. Several representatives immediately accessed their data systems to verify. The Centauri ambassador's expression changed to confusion as she found the records Kyle mentioned. This is technically correct, she admitted slowly. But why did you not sign? Why did you keep your refusal secret? Because 15 years ago the colony on New Boston was raided, Kyle said quietly. 63 humans died while we waited for help that arrived 5 weeks too late. We asked the Council for protection. We were told that military forces were expensive and difficult to maintain. We were told to be patient. We were told that these things happen in the outer rim. He paused, looking around the chamber. So we decided to protect ourselves. We built a fleet capable of responding to distress calls quickly. We developed technology that would give us an advantage against raiders and pirates. And we kept it secret because we were not interested in threatening anyone. We just wanted to make sure that when one of our people called for help, we could actually reach them in time. A representative from the Dravian Collective, a species known for their military strength, stood up. Ambassador Morrison, your fleet demonstrated capabilities we believed impossible. Synchronized fleet jumps across multiple light years, stealth systems that defeated every known sensor, jump interdiction technology. How long have you possessed these capabilities? Long enough to ensure they work properly, Kyle replied. We do not build weapons to show off or intimidate. We build them to be reliable when lives depend on them. And the Krell? Another representative asked. What will happen to Warlord Kresh and his crews? Kyle's expression hardened slightly. They will stand trial for piracy, murder, and attacks on civilian populations. We have transmitted all evidence to your judicial committee. Video recordings, sensor data, testimony from survivors. The evidence is overwhelming. What you choose to do with that evidence is your decision, but I will make one thing absolutely clear. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. The Krell Dominion, and any other group that thinks the Outer Rim is easy prey, needs to understand something important. Human lives are now under the protection of the Terra First Fleet. If you attack humans anywhere in the galaxy, you will face the same response the Krell faced. We are not asking for permission. We are not requesting approval. We are simply informing you of reality. The chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives were angry at Earth's unilateral action. They felt humanity had overstepped its authority. Others were relieved that someone finally had the ability and willingness to protect the outer colonies. A few were simply terrified at the implications of Earth's revealed military power. Kyle let them argue. He had said what needed to be said. The rest was just politics and posturing. Earth had made its choice. They would protect their people. The galaxy could accept that or not, but nothing would change Earth's commitment. On Centauri Prime's main news network, the story dominated every broadcast. Footage from the battle played over and over. Military analysts tried to explain how the humans had accomplished what they showed. Most admitted they had no explanation. The technology was too advanced. The tactics were too sophisticated. One popular news program brought in a retired Dravian admiral to discuss the battle. Admiral Zek had 40 years of military experience. He had fought in 3 wars and commanded fleets in dozens of engagements. What do you make of this human fleet? The interviewer asked. Admiral Zek watched the battle footage carefully before responding. This is the most professional military operation I have ever witnessed. The coordination, the precision, the restraint. They could have destroyed those Krell ships in seconds. Instead, they disabled them without killing anyone. That takes incredible skill and discipline. Are the humans a threat to galactic security? The Admiral thought about that. A threat? No, they demonstrated they are protectors, not conquerors. But anyone who threatens human lives should be very afraid. Because this fleet will respond, and when it does, the outcome is not in doubt. On Earth, news of the Epsilon Ridge rescue spread quickly. Most of the population had been unaware of the Rapid Response Initiative. They learned that their tax contributions and mysterious military budget increases had built something extraordinary. The reaction was mixed. Some people were shocked that their government had kept such a massive project secret. Others felt proud that Earth had the capability to protect its people anywhere in the galaxy. President Ellen Rogers addressed the planet in a live broadcast. My fellow humans, today you learned about a project that has been classified for 15 years. I understand many of you have questions. Why was it kept secret? Why did we build such a powerful military force? Let me explain. She paused, gathering her thoughts. 15 years ago, New Boston was attacked. Our people died while we waited for help that came too late. I was a senator then, and I watched families grieve for loved ones we could not save. I promised myself that would never happen again. So I, along with many others in government, authorized the Rapid Response Initiative. We built a fleet capable of reaching any human, anywhere in the galaxy, in days instead of weeks. We kept it secret not to deceive you, but because we wanted the fleet to be fully operational before revealing it. We did not want to provoke conflict or arms races. We just wanted to be ready when someone needed help. Today, that readiness saved 12 human lives and 41 others. I believe that justifies every credit we spent. The broadcast was watched by billions of people. Response was overwhelmingly positive. Families of those saved from Epsilon Ridge appeared on news programs, thanking the fleet and the government for acting. Henry Carter did multiple interviews telling the story of his daughter Katie and how he had faith that help would come. I knew humans would not abandon us, Henry said in one interview. I told my daughter the cavalry was coming. And they came. They crossed impossible distances and defeated 12 warships to save us. That is who we are as a species. That is what makes me proud to be human. On the Vengeance, Commander Jacob Price prepared to address his crew. They had performed flawlessly during the battle. 0 casualties. 0 mistakes. A perfect operation. But Jacob knew this was just the beginning. Attention all crew members, this is Commander Price. Today you proved that the Terra First Fleet is ready for its mission. You demonstrated professionalism, skill, and restraint under pressure. You saved lives. You stopped criminals. You showed the galaxy what humans are capable of when we work together. He paused, looking around the bridge at his officers. But our work is not finished. Today was one rescue. Tomorrow there will be another. And the day after that, another. We are now the guardians of the Outer Rim. Every human in this fleet has accepted the responsibility to respond when someone calls for help. That responsibility does not end. It does not take breaks. It is who we are now. So rest tonight. Celebrate our success. But tomorrow we return to our duties, because somewhere out there someone might need us. And when they do, we will answer. That is our promise. That is our purpose. The crew responded with determination. They understood what they had signed up for. They were not normal military personnel serving routine tours. They were the Rapid Response Force, the cavalry that rode to the rescue. It was a demanding role, but also a meaningful one. In the days following the battle, piracy incidents in the Outer Rim decreased dramatically. Word spread quickly among criminal organizations. Humans were now protected by a fleet that could respond in hours, not weeks. Raiders and pirates chose easier targets. The outer colonies became safer almost overnight. Ambassador Kyle Morrison met privately with several key council members who wanted to understand Earth's intentions. The Centauri ambassador was among them. Ambassador Morrison, she said, many of us are still processing what we learned. Your fleet is formidable. Your technology is advanced. What prevents you from using that power for conquest instead of protection? Kyle smiled slightly. Our values. Our culture. Earth has a long history of protecting the weak and standing up to bullies. We are not perfect. We have made mistakes. 6 months had passed since Epsilon Ridge, and the galaxy looked very different. The Outer Rim colonies that had once lived in constant fear of raids now operated with confidence. Trade routes that had been dangerous were now secure. Mining stations worked without worrying about sudden attacks. The change was remarkable and unmistakable. Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of Terra Outpost Prime, a new station that served as a hub for the entire Outer Rim sector. She had been promoted from transport captain to civilian liaison officer. Her job was to coordinate between civilian operations and military protection. It was demanding work but deeply satisfying. A young officer approached her console. "Captain Hayes, we have a distress signal coming from the Kepler sector. A mining vessel reports they are under attack by raiders." Lisa felt her pulse quicken, the same response she had felt 6 months ago when Epsilon Ridge called for help. But now she knew what to say. Now she knew help would actually arrive in time. "What assets do we have in that sector?" "Destroyer Group Falcon is on patrol approximately 2 hours away. They are already responding." 2 hours. Lisa smiled at how much had changed. 6 months ago, help might take weeks to arrive. Now it was measured in hours. The Terra First Fleet had revolutionized rescue operations across the entire Outer Rim. "Keep monitoring the situation. If Falcon needs support, alert the carrier group on standby." "Yes, Captain." Lisa watched the young officer return to his station. He had probably been in training 6 months ago, unaware that humanity possessed such advanced military capabilities. Now he worked with the most powerful fleet in the known galaxy, as if it were completely normal. On Earth, President Ellen Rogers met with her military advisors to discuss the next phase of human expansion. The Rapid Response Initiative had proven successful beyond anyone's expectations. Now they needed to decide what came next. "The fleet has responded to 62 distress calls in 6 months, General Peter Brooks reported. "We have saved over 4,000 beings from 23 different species. Piracy in the Outer Rim has decreased by 78%. The strategy is working." "What about our relationship with the Galactic Council?" the President asked. Ambassador Kyle Morrison, attending via video link from Centauri Prime, answered that question. "Relations are improving slowly. Many species still view us with suspicion, but our actions are building trust. Every successful rescue operation, every time we show restraint, we gain credibility. Are there any species actively opposing us?" "A few. The Krell Dominion has retreated to their home systems and refuses diplomatic contact. Some of the older empires resent our sudden rise in influence, but most species either support us or remain neutral. The key is maintaining our reputation as protectors, not conquerors." President Rogers nodded thoughtfully. "What about expansion beyond military operations? Can we leverage our position to improve conditions throughout the Outer Rim?" General Brooks activated a holographic display showing various proposals. "We have multiple initiatives ready for approval. Medical ships equipped with the latest treatment facilities, engineering teams capable of repairing damaged stations, educational programs for colonies that lack resources. All of these would be protected by the fleet but focused on humanitarian assistance." "I like that approach," the President said. "We have proven we can fight. Now we need to prove we can build, approve all humanitarian initiatives. I want Earth to be known not just for our weapons but for our compassion." On Fortress Station Defiance, Commander Sandra Mitchell reviewed patrol schedules. She had replaced Jacob Price as fleet commander 3 months ago. Jacob had served his tour with distinction, and now trained new officers at the Academy on Mars. Sandra was determined to maintain the high standards he had established. "Commander," Lieutenant Amy Foster called from her station, "we have updated intelligence reports from Council Space. The Dravian Collective is requesting a meeting to discuss military cooperation." Sandra raised her eyebrows. The Dravians were the most powerful military force in the galaxy, before Earth revealed its fleet. They had centuries of experience and tradition. A cooperation request was significant. What do they want to discuss? Joint training exercises and technology sharing. They are particularly interested in our stealth systems and jump coordination protocols. Sandra considered carefully. Sharing technology was always risky, but building alliances was important. "Set up a preliminary meeting. We will discuss possibilities but make no commitments yet. I want approval from Earth Command before we share any classified technology." "Understood, Commander." The approach of building relationships while maintaining security was delicate. Sandra knew that Earth's technological advantage would not last forever. Other species would develop similar capabilities eventually. The question was whether humanity could build enough goodwill before that happened. On Epsilon Ridge, life had returned to normal. The station had been rebuilt with improved defenses and better communication systems. Henry Carter still worked there as station manager. His daughter Katie attended school and talked about becoming a fleet officer when she grew up. One evening, Henry stood in the observation deck and watched ships come and go. A human destroyer was on patrol nearby, its presence reassuring. He thought about how much had changed in 6 months. The galaxy felt safer now. The outer colonies had hope. Katie joined him at the window. She was taller now, more confident. The terrified child hiding in an emergency shelter had become a brave girl with dreams of the stars. "Daddy, do you think I could really join the fleet someday?" Henry smiled and put his arm around her shoulders. "If that is what you want, then yes. You could be part of the cavalry that helps people. I want to help people like they helped us. I want to be someone who answers when people call for help." "Then you will be," Henry said with certainty, "because that is who humans are. We help each other. We protect those who need protection. That is what makes us special." They stood together watching the stars, father and daughter, survivors who had been saved by the impossible promise that help would come. And it had come. It would always come. At the Galactic Council headquarters, a new proposal was being debated. Several species had suggested creating a joint rapid response force modeled after Earth's fleet. The idea was controversial. Some saw it as necessary for galactic security. Others worried it would lead to an arms race. Ambassador Kyle Morrison listened to the debate without commenting. He knew that imitation was the highest form of flattery, but also that Earth's fleet was unique. It was not just about technology or tactics. It was about commitment, about the willingness to drop everything and rush to help when someone needed it. After hours of discussion, the Centauri ambassador asked Kyle for his opinion. "Earth would welcome cooperation in protecting the outer rim," he said carefully. "But building a rapid response force requires more than ships and weapons. It requires a culture of service. It requires crews willing to train for years, waiting for calls that might never come. It requires governments willing to commit massive resources for purely defensive purposes." He paused, looking around the chamber. "If other species are truly committed to that vision, Earth will help. We will share training protocols. We will discuss technology partnerships. But this cannot be half-hearted. If you want to build a fleet like ours, you must be prepared to use it the way we do. To protect, not to conquer. To serve, not to dominate." The debate continued, but Kyle had made his point. Earth would cooperate, but only with those who shared their values. Only with those who understood that power existed to protect the weak, not to exploit them. On the Vengeance, now under the command of Captain Lauren White, the crew conducted a training exercise with ships from the Meridian Union. The Meridians were a peaceful species, but they had decided to develop their own defensive capabilities after seeing Earth's example. They wanted to learn from the best. The exercise simulated a rescue operation on a damaged station. The Meridian ship struggled with coordination and timing. Their technology was adequate, but their crews lacked experience. Captain White provided feedback and guidance throughout the exercise. "You are thinking too slowly," she explained during a debriefing. "In a real emergency, every second matters. You need to practice until the responses become automatic. That is how we save lives, not through perfect planning, but through perfect execution under pressure." The Meridian captain listened carefully and nodded. "We have much to learn. Your crews make it look easy, but I see now how much work is required." Lauren smiled. "It is hard work, but it is worth it. Every time you successfully rescue someone, every time you arrive in time to help, it makes all the training worthwhile." The cooperation between Earth and other species grew steadily. Not everyone trusted humans yet, but more were willing to give them a chance. The Terra First Fleet had proven itself not with words, but with actions. 62 successful rescues, thousands of lives saved, 0 incidents of unnecessary force or aggression. In a small apartment on Earth, Jacob Price watched news coverage of the latest rescue operation. He had retired from active command, but remained involved in fleet affairs through his teaching position. He felt proud watching his former crews perform flawlessly in difficult situations. His wife brought him tea and sat beside him.